Hello, I'm Marcia McMillan. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning. Tonight, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are set to square off in Atlanta in the first presidential debate between a current and former president in U.S. history. For this rematch, a number of new rules have been introduced. For one, both candidates' microphones will be muted unless it's their turn to speak. There will be no audience present, and the candidates are not allowed to bring any props or pre-written notes and will only be given a pen, some paper, and water. Let's turn now to Atlanta. CTV's Joy Malbon is there in advance of the big night. Joy, a high-stakes debate. What does each candidate need to do tonight to try to move the polls?
Look, Americans know who these two candidates are. Recent polling tells us that a quarter of voters don't like either of them. So the polls are essentially deadlocked and have been for some time. So each candidate, they've got to try and shake things up. They've got to try and present a vision for the future, convince voters that they are the better choice. What will Joe Biden do? We know that he's been hunkered down at Camp David. We know that he has been doing mock debates, intense sessions, honing in probably on where Donald Trump is most vulnerable. Women's reproductive rights. We just, there was the 2-year anniversary of the national abortion law being overturned by the conservative justices that Trump appointed. He will hone in on the economy, and he will also paint Donald Trump as dangerous and reckless and a threat to democracy. Donald Trump, he's doing things a little bit different. He has been meeting with some of his policy advisors, going over policy. They kind of hope that without an audience that Donald Trump loves to feed off of, that he'll stay on message, that he'll be disciplined, and that he will attack Joe Biden about the economy, stubbornly high inflation, immigration, the thousands of migrants that have crossed the border, and really push him hard on what voters here in America say are their number one issues. Both men, they need a boost tonight. They need to shake up those polls.
Joy, we mentioned that there are new rules. Both parties agreed to them. Tell us more about the rules and how they will potentially shape tonight's debate.
Well, both candidates agreed to these rules. It's kind of like bring it on. And what's going to be so interesting is to watch these two men alone on a stage. Like you said, no props, no advisors, no audience, no hecklers. And the muted mics is really important because you may remember last time around in 2020 during the debate, Donald Trump interrupted Joe Biden something like over 100 times. Finally, Joe Biden said, "Will you just shut up, man?" I mean, it was one of those viral moments. This time around, the moderators hope to keep them on topic and on the issues that American voters really care about. Millions of people, millions of Americans are expected to tune in. And both of them are really looking for some kind of bump. We know that debates can give presidential candidates a bump. These two need to shake things up because right now it's deadlock. We know that only a handful of states will decide this presidential election. And both of them are looking for something, some viral moment, anything to move the needle, so to speak.
And Joy, there's something like only 8 feet between the two men. That's pretty darn close. You mentioned shaking things up. What about shaking hands? Have you heard anything about whether or not they will shake hands before or after the debate?
That's the $64 million question. Will they even acknowledge one another and shake hands? We know that last time around, Joe Biden called the former president, Donald Trump, Donald. How do they address each other? It's going to be really interesting because, look, there is no love lost between these two. They are bitter, bitter rivals. Joe Biden, has been attacking Donald Trump and his criminal convictions. And Donald Trump, he's suggesting that Joe Biden will be on drugs tonight, that they'll pump him up with something, energy drinks, anything to keep him energetic. Because, of course, the big knock against Joe Biden is his age right now, even though there's only 3 years apart between the two candidates.
It's going to be so interesting to watch all the dynamics. CTV's Joy Malbon in Atlanta for us. Joy, thank you so much for that. CTV will have full coverage of tonight's CNN presidential debate, beginning with a special edition of Power Play, hosted by our chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelis. That starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can then watch the simulcast of the CNN presidential debate at 9 o'clock Eastern on CNN, CTV News Channel, and ctvnews.ca. There's also going to be a post-debate edition of Power Play with Vashi right here on CTV News Channel 2.